Hello and welcome to my vlog. My name is Florence and I intend to bring you some recipes that you might find daunting at first, but I'm going to show you how you can make them much more easily than you think possible. First, a little bit about myself. I'm a chef and I have experience working at the Ritz, the Sheraton and the Gherkin, where I've developed a love of patisserie, and I've recently started my own business called Florence's Fancies, specialising in cakes and confectionery as well as high-class catering for events. If you like what you see, then please share my page with your friends and family, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions or requests or suggestions for other features or techniques. For my first recipe, I'm going to show you a really classy dessert, which most people are frightened to tackle, as everyone's heard these horror stories of how difficult it is to make. But if you follow my easy technique, you'll find it's really easy and will definitely impress your friends. Raspberry Souffle. I love this word. It means breath. And a good souffle should be ultra light and fluffy and full of flavour. So we're going to start off with the ingredients. You're going to need 6 ramekin dishes, medium sized like this one. And then you'll need 200 grams of raspberry puree. We're going to make ours from fresh raspberry today, but you can buy it already pureed from suppliers or online. We also need 20 grams of icing sugar, 50 grams of caster sugar, 20 grams of corn flour, and for the souffle we'll need 90 grams of egg whites and another 25 grams of sugar. So to serve, you can also have some creme fraiche, or if you prefer, some vanilla ice cream. You'll need also a small amount of butter and some sugar to line your ramekins with. If you didn't get the ingredients down, don't worry, it'll be under the video in the description and you can take it down at your leisure. The first step, and this is really important, is to brush the inside of your ramekin with softened butter. So you'll notice that this butter is really nice and soft, and this is perfect for what we need. So we need to really brush inside the ramekin, making sure that we coat all inside the ramekin. Then we have to make some nice brush strokes up the sides of the ramekin. We really want to make sure that they're nice even strokes so we get really nice straight lines. These straight lines are going to be really useful to you later on when you're baking your souffle, as they will help your souffle to rise. So you'll notice how I'm brushing it, just nice straight lines up the side, and you'll notice that it's all covered, really nice and greased with butter. Just like that. So now I'm going to coat the butter that we painted in the ramekins with sugar. So we can pour the sugar straight into the ramekin. We can fill it up to a nice height because you can see I've got 6 to fill. So we pour it in, and then gradually, as I'm tipping it into the next one, I just twist it so that we make sure that the sugar coats all of the butter that we have inside there. And then just tap it all into the next one. And we can carry on with all of them. And your ramekin should just be nicely covered in sugar and butter. Just ready for us to do the next stage. So now I've got my butter and my sugar in the ramekins. I'm going to pop them into the fridge to chill until my mix is ready. Now I'm going to make my raspberry puree. So I'm going to take my raspberries and pop them into the blender with my 20 grams of icing sugar. Just going to blend them together until they're nice and smooth. So. It shouldn't take you very long. You just want to get a nice consistency. But as you'll notice, I will still have my seeds in there. Now that's not a problem at all. As you'll notice, it's just a nice puree. The raspberries are all just blended together with the icing sugar. But to get rid of my seeds, I'm just going to pass it through a sieve and into my saucepan, ready for the next stage. This should be nice and simple. You see, I'm just pushing the raspberries through the sieve, just to get rid of the seeds from here, just to catch all that lovely, lovely puree. You can really smell the raspberries here. Really enjoying this lovely fresh smell that you get from making a lovely fresh puree. It's really good to just quite push it through so so that you make sure you get every last drop of this puree. And it's quite handy that I'm popping it into my saucepan straight away, so we need to get onto the saucepan next. Don't worry about this last little bit that's left in here. It'll be quite difficult to get it all through. So there we go. I've passed all my puree through. It's all through into the nice saucepan here. So I can just scrape the bottom of it just to make sure we're not leaving too much of the mix behind. Now we can get ready to make the rest of our base. So I'm just going to transfer this lovely smooth puree onto the stove now, and I'm going to just pop the heat on quite nice and low. So it's on the heat, nice and low. Now I'm just going to add my 50 grams of sugar. Just going to pop it in there with the puree. I'm just going to mix it all in so that we don't get any sugar stuck to the bottom of the pan. And now this, we're going to bring it to the boil. But just gently. We want to make sure that we keep stirring the bottom so that it doesn't catch on the bottom, because we don't want to burn this. So while we wait, we need to just dilute our cornflour a little bit. So I have it in my bowl here. Just going to add just a little bit of water, and then I'm just going to mix it in with my spoon. You just want to mix it just so that the stiffness disappears, so you might need to add a little bit more water depending. You'll notice that it is quite stiff to start with, but don't panic, it does go. Just make sure that we're keeping an eye on our puree, just so that it doesn't boil. There we go. You notice that I had to add a little bit of water, just to get it so it's a nice, smooth liquid, and there's not any lumps in there. Because this we're going to add to our puree. You don't want to add any lumps of corn flour. So, my puree is now boiling. Just going to add my corn flour to it. Just going to pour it all in one go. Just making sure that I get it all in there. And then I'm going to mix it quite thoroughly. And you'll notice that I have to keep it on the heat for about a minute until it should start to go really nice and thick, as you'll notice it's doing now. Should really go quite thick, and you'll notice it's a little bit similar to the texture of jam. And this is when we can stop cooking it. This is ready now, and this is what it should look like. Just a nice jammy texture. Don't worry if you do have any little lumps, you can just whisk them out. But I'm just going to transfer this now to a nice clean bowl here so that we can take it out and cool it. Just pop it all in there, making sure we get every last little bit. So now we're going to cling film this bowl, but we just want to make sure that the cling film really does touch the raspberry. This is so that we don't get skin on it. So just feed it into the bowl. Just sit it just on top of the raspberry base that we've just made. There we go. Now I can set this aside to cool. So usually at this stage I'll leave everything where it is and I'll go and sit down with my guests for dinner. And then I can finish off my soufflés just as we're ready to eat them, because it's great. It can give you a nice natural break so that everyone's really anticipating what is to come. But just before I go, I will set my oven to 185 degrees so that it's really thoroughly hot, ready for my soufflés. So I've had my lovely dinner with my guests. Now I'm going to take my raspberry base back again. Just going to check the consistency of it. If you have left yours a long time, and it is really quite set, then don't worry, we just pop it over a pan of boiling water and just soften it just to bring it back. So we just check that it's just nice and smooth still, and that's okay. So I need to just make my meringue part of the souffle now. So I'm going to whisk my egg whites in my machine. Just going to whisk them until they're nice and fluffy. I also need my sugar here, my 25 grams of sugar, ready to add when they are nice and fluffy. So I've added the first half of my sugar when they're nice and fluffy. Now I'm going to add the second half and whisk until it is nice and shiny. So this is a really nice meringue. You'll notice you have some nice peaks coming off when I lift up the whisk. Just some nice peaks, and that's how much we want to whisk it. We want to be careful that we don't over whisk this, as we can get some separation in our meringue. So now we have our nice meringue ready and our softened base. We need to combine the two. So usually I take just a little of my meringue and just combine it in with my base, just folding it in nicely so it gets some combining nicely. Just like that. Now you'll notice that it starts to get a little bit lighter, it's not quite such a heavy texture. We're going to pop the rest of this in there with our lovely meringue. Now this is the part where we need to be careful that we don't overmix this, as we could knock out all the lovely air that we've worked so hard to create. So we just want to gently fold this through, making sure that we're keeping this lovely air here. Just folding and cutting through. So we're still being careful that we don't knock too much air out of this. So just folding it through. And you'll notice that it's becoming this really lovely pink colour. This is the final colour for our soufflés. There we go. Now it's just combined. Don't worry too much about some of the streaks in there. Just going to pop it straight into a piping bag so that we're ready to go. Pop it into my piping bag. I usually find it easier if I fold it back over my hand and create a nice hole ready for your mix. Just pop it in, just nice and carefully, just all into the bag. Popping it all in. It's really lovely that we have all this air in here because this is going to make your soufflé so nice and light when it comes out of the oven. You notice I'm just picking up the bowl so that I can get every last little bit in there. Just into my piping bag. Lovely. So now I'm going to need to retrieve my ramekin dishes that we've been chilling in the fridge. So I'll just pop this down for a moment and I'll just get my ramekin dishes. So here they are, lovely and chilled, really nice and cold, ready for our mix. So we're going to just snip a nice big hole in the piping bag. We want it really big so that we don't push any more of this air out that we've created. Just a nice big hole here. I'm just going to pipe our mix into our moulds to about this height. This is a really lovely airy mix. As you notice, it's just enough to make 6 lovely soufflés. Just pop the last bits of mix in. Now you'll notice I do have a few peaks here, but that's not a problem. Just with a nice palette knife we can just make the end of it just a little bit wet. Just smooth some of those peaks down, just so that it's nice and smooth on the top. Now we're going to pop them into the oven, and they should be in the oven for about 7 minutes. I'm going to put mine in. Now it depends on your oven. Some ovens you may need between 6 and 8 minutes. That's just a rough guide. But I'm going to bake mine for 7 minutes. So my soufflés are now ready. As you notice, these lovely rising here, all this rising, and the air inside. So we're going to take them out, and now these need to be served immediately while they're still hot. So I'm going to take my soufflé, just being careful because they are still really hot as they've just come out of the oven, and I'm going to serve it with lovely dollop, generous dollop of creme fraiche on my plate, because creme fraiche adds sort of piquancy to the dish, just cuts through with a nice little flavour. So I'm going to just do a nice big dollop on the plate next to my soufflé, and I'm going to serve it to my guests. It's like eating a raspberry cloud. Oh, delicious. And that's it. So simple. And that is a raspberry soufflé that will really impress your friends.